A struggling writer moves his family into a house where an entire family was murdered. While searching the attic, he discovers a box of old film reels. At first, they look like harmless home movies, until he realizes each tape captures the brutal murder of a different family. But the most terrifying part isn't the killings, it's the strange figure hiding in every single recording. And the longer he watches, the closer that evil gets to his own children. Ellison Oswalt is a washed-up true crime writer chasing one last shot at relevance, and he's stubborn enough to take his family into a house that most sane people would avoid. He can't help it. He smells a story. A brutal family murder, a promising case file, and the chance to write the book that will put him back on the map. So he moves his wife Tracy, teenage daughter Ashley, and son Trevor into a quiet Ohio house with a gruesome history, and immediately starts digging. That's the setup, and things go dark fast. On arrival, Ellison does what he always does. He treats a crime scene like a story waiting to be unearthed. He pokes around the attic and finds a box of old Super 8 reels and a Polaroid, and this is where the movie pulls the rug and starts crawling under your skin. The films are home movies from different years, people's private footage turned into something monstrous. Inside those flickering frames are scenes of families being murdered in ritualistic, baffling ways, and always some strange pale figure lurking in the background. Ellison, bless his ego, thinks he can control the investigation. He doesn't realize the investigation is the trap. As Ellison screens the reels, he discovers a pattern. Each film shows a child who becomes the center of the horror. A kid filming their own parents, a pale man, later identified in legend as Bughuul, aka Mr. Boogie, watching from the shadows, and then the camera becomes a record of blood. Ellison's professional curiosity flips into obsession. He catalogs the victims, finds old news clippings, calls a former detective who investigated the case, and assembles a map of disappearances and murders that span decades. The more he learns, the worse the implications. Whatever is in those films isn't just footage, it's a conduit. Images, pictures, and films seem to be how this thing moves, lures, and keeps its children. Ellison brings the films home. That's the mistake, but in his defense, he's desperate for proof. He starts to play the footage for himself and, eventually, for the family. Trevor, the curious younger kid, is the one who gets hooked first. There's something painfully believable about the way the film captures a child's imagination. A reel becomes a portal. Trevor is drawn in the way kids are drawn to glow in the dark things. Attracted without understanding the danger. He watches in secret, then watches again. He starts drawing the pale man and the strange symbols he sees in the frames. Ashley, trying to be the responsible teen, sees her father's obsession and her brother's fascination and reacts with typical teenage mix of scorn and worry. Tracy grows distant as Ellison sinks deeper into his research, his marriage fraying as he presses on, convinced that the story will fix everything. The movie uses that family deterioration to build dread. It's not just about jump scares, it's about how obsession unfurls a family from the inside out. Ellison's sessions with the old detective reveal more of the backstory. Families repeatedly fall under this pattern across decades, leaving a trail of missing children and framed footage. Bughuul feeds on children's souls, and he seems to travel through imagery, films, photos, drawings, using them as passports. It's gruesome and heartbreaking in equal measure because the victims are always families, whole lives fractured and recorded on celluloid. Ellison tries to be the rational man. He catalogs real numbers, titles, dates. He goes to the house of one of the victims, talks to neighbors, and even tracks down an academic who mentions Bughuul as a pagan deity used in ritual to steal children. But the more facts he piles up, the less safe his family becomes. There are specific, chilling touches. The way the pale figure often appears framed behind the camera, smiling without expression. The Polaroids where children stare at the lens as if the lens is looking back and learning them. The film's horror is cumulative. Little scenes of normalcy steadily corrupted by this otherworldly presence. There are also smaller, human moments that make it land. Ellison's awkward attempts at being a father, Tracy's growing alarm, Ashley's social life and stubborn attempts to act like everything is normal. The movie gives you enough of their lives that when things go wrong, you care. That's crucial because the real terror of Sinister isn't just the supernatural, it's losing your children to something you can't imagine. The film is not shy about showing how a father's hubris can cost a family dearly. As Trevor spends more time with the reels, oddities begin. He discovers an antique projector and runs a reel late at night. The pale man in the footage seems to wink at him. Trevor starts drawing images he sees. He starts speaking as if someone else is in him. Ellison blames himself, even as he pours more hours into the research trying to figure out what's happening. He digs through court files, he visits state hospitals, he runs down every lead because that's what he does. He turns suffering into pages. But the more he uncovers, the closer the danger creeps. The midpoint crush comes as the pattern snaps into focus. The films aren't passive records. The children in them aren't only victims, they're the perpetrators too. Each sequence shows a child committing unspeakable acts, then developing a ritual of taking Polaroids and film of the aftermath. Ellison realizes the entity is not just causing murders. It's harvesting the children's souls and trapping them inside the imagery. The revelation is horrifying because it means his family's use of the films has made them targets. Pictures make a doorway. What follows is a fragmentation of the family's safety. Trevor becomes more remote. Ashley tries to protect him with that half-ready teenage toughness, and Tracy loses faith in Ellison's judgment. The film ratchets with small jolts. Trevor exhibiting odd sleepwalking, dropping sketches with symbols, showing a fascination with the camera that's just wrong. Ellison catches glimpses of the pale man's iconography in other places, on playgrounds, in photographs, in the children's drawings, and realizes the scope of what he's up against. He tries a desperate move. He burns the reels, thinking destruction might destroy the connection. But sintering a supernatural tether isn't so simple. Destruction only delays the inevitable. There's a sequence where Ellison believes he can outsmart the force by documenting it, by capturing evidence he will publish before it can take his children. It's stubborn and almost noble in a human way, but it's the same hubris that led him to move into the house. He's convinced the story will save them because storytelling is the thing he understands best. Unfortunately, the entity exploits that very thing. Images are its language. Documenting the evil deepens its foothold. The camera, meant to reveal truth, becomes a tool of oppression. From here the movie slides toward a suffocating, slow-motion collapse. Trevor's behavior becomes disturbing in ways no parent should face. He disappears for stretches, lies about where he's been, and draws people in poses that mimic scenes from the old films. Ellison's research shows that children once taken end up trapped in film forever, smiling in Polaroid after Polaroid, victims frozen in images that the entity controls. Ellison's last attempts to save his family are frantic. Phone calls to friends, more research, a primal urge to protect, while the house itself seems to conspire. Sinister uses set pieces well. It turns the ordinary, the attic, the basement, a child's bedroom, into no-go zones. The house is a character, and it's not kind. One of the most upsetting parts is how isolated Ellison becomes. Friends and law enforcement are skeptical. They see a man with a history of fabricated stories chasing an impossible explanation. His credibility collapses as quickly as his family's safety, and the movie draws a knot of helplessness. He can't compel strangers to believe the supernatural, and he can't protect his family alone. That's when you realize the story isn't just about a monster. It's about what happens when a desperate parent bets everything on being right. The final act is merciless in how it pays off the slow build. Trevor, fully influenced, follows the pattern we've seen on the aged reels. There are scenes that are hard to watch because they're intimate, domestic moments remade into ritual. The camera becomes an instrument of betrayal, and the children, eyes blank with something older than them, carry on the pattern. Ellison's attempts at intervention fail in heartbreaking ways. The culmination is tragic in a way that feels inevitable. The film's rules, once laid bare, cannot be outmaneuvered by good intentions or stubbornness. Without giving every brutal detail, the ending delivers the cruel twist that casts Ellison's entire arc in a new light. His investigation that began as a path back to relevance ultimately becomes the mechanism of his family's destruction. The evidence he collected and the films he watched ensnared his child, and the cycle consumes them. The final images are chilling. Footage and Polaroids that eternalize the victims, a reminder that bugs and demons and myths in this movie don't vanish when you flick off the projector. Instead, they claim a more permanent kind of presence by trapping people in pictures, forever smiling, forever watched. Sinister's storytelling is effective because it blends procedural curiosity with supernatural dread. Ellison's voiceover and obsessive cataloging give the film a documentary feel at times, which makes the supernatural intrusions feel all the more invasive. The small human moments. Ellison's awkward attempts at fatherhood, Tracis' exhaustion, Ashley's teenage defiance, keep it from being hollow shock value. The horror sits on top of real human failure, and that's why the ending hurts. It's not only scary, it's mournful. If you want the takeaway, it's bleak but thoughtful. Some stories cost more than they're worth. Ellison wanted a comeback and accurate truth. He got an all-consuming horror that used his curiosity and his family's trust as fuel. Sinister leaves you with a final image that doesn't just shock but nags. What we make of images, and how easy it is for something malign to exploit the things we use to remember. It's a cautionary tale wrapped in a ghost story and served with more than a few jolts and enough dread to stick with you after the lights come up. And yeah, it's also a good reminder not to poke around attics full of mysterious film reels. Basic common sense that, for an obsessed writer, comes a bit too late. In the end, Ellison spent the entire movie searching for the truth, believing he could solve the mystery and save his family. But every clue he uncovered only pulled them deeper into Bughuul's trap. His obsession with the case became the very thing that doomed the people he loved most. And that's the terrifying story of Sinister. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more horror movie recaps. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if you found a box of mysterious film reels hidden in your attic?